Howdy, and welcome to the Feed Bandit podcast, where we talk all things hunting and introduce you to innovative hunting products and services. If you want to level up your hunting game and gear, be sure to join the hunt. To join the hunt, text the word BANDIT to 345-345. And when you do, you'll join our email list, where we'll send killer deals on innovative hunting products and services, along with entertaining tips and tricks straight to your inbox. Again, text the word BANDIT to 345-345, and we look forward to seeing you on the hunt. Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. Jimmy here, and as always, I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Richard. How you doing tonight, sir?
Yes, sir. Doing just fine. Now, Ray, you realize what you just said, don't you? You just said, "How are you doing tonight?"
Yeah. What if someone's listening to this at 7 in the morning driving to work?
That's right. Totally got you. No, I'm doing really well. So I have been told, one of our good buddies sent a little text message to us a couple of days ago saying that we have reached, in the state of Texas, we have reached kind of the last like super hot day. So from Saturday forward, apparently it starts to cool down. And of course, that's going to remind us of dove season and whitetail season, and mule deer season, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm excited. There is relief within eyesight, or within the earshot, I believe.
That is music to my ears.
No doubt.
Especially today, what I think is 102, something around that.
Anyway.
Awesome. But by the time people hear this, we'll already be well into that downtrend and temperatures. It'll probably only be 97 then, or whatever.
That's right. I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Right. All right. On the podcast tonight, we have Charlie Stockstill. He's the regional director for the Mule Deer Foundation. Hey, Charlie, welcome to the Feed Bandit podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to learn all about mule deer tonight. We have some good questions for you, I hope. So
hopefully I come up with at least a possible good answer.
All right. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the Mule Deer Foundation, and kind of what you do as a regional director for them?
Well, I come from a long line of outdoor education-related activities. And a few years ago, when I decided to come back into this line of work, I wanted to help an animal that needed the help. And after looking around, I narrowed it down to either quail or mule deer. I think we're in pretty good shape when it comes to everything else, and there were a lot of people working on everything else, so I wanted my efforts to count towards something that needed it. I actually got the Quail Forever and the Mule Deer Foundation in a little bidding war, lasted a couple of days, and I'm not sure who won, who lost, but now I work for the Mule Deer Foundation. And I've been very happy. It's a good group of people, and they're doing a lot of the right things all across the West.
Great. So explain to the listeners, if they're not really familiar with mule deer and what's going on with them. You mentioned that you wanted to help an animal that needed help. Why? So what's going on with the mule deer, and why do they need help?
Well, they need help because of me and you. Okay. Mule deer's claim to fame is they are the only big game animal on the decline in the United States.
Are you? Wait, really?
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know that, but that's why I'm on this podcast.
That is unbelievable. I had no idea. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm flabbergasted. This is only the first minute of the podcast.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Well, I'm sorry they're on the decline. They're a really neat animal, but they're not very adaptive. And whenever I say it's because of me and you, we drive automobiles that require gasoline, that require roads. We like eating beef that requires fences. We live and have a lot of activities, and they're limited habitat. Then whenever you get up in New Mexico and Colorado on the mountain part, they're restricted. All mountain type animals are restricted by the amount of available winter habitat.
Right.
And we have seen an explosion in the last 15, 20 years of elk.
Right.
Well, elk and mule deer share the same winter habitat, and an acre of hay is only going to feed so many pounds of wild animal, and elk being bigger, mule deer kind of take the back seat.
That is absolutely, in the bad way, fascinating. I had no idea. I did, I just assumed when you said that they're on the decline that it had to deal with habitat fragmentation and, and loss and whatnot. But so Charlie, what you're really saying, another way is, for example, the white-tailed deer seem to be very adaptive, where they can survive in Austin, Texas. And but the mule deer really don't really seem to be able to do that, as far as adapting to an altered environment like that.
No, they need it the way God made it, the way they evolved in that habitat.
Sure.
Now there is a piece of good news for all us people that already live in Texas. We're used to good news.
There you go.
The Panhandle region of Texas is the only place in North America where the herd is expanding.
Oh. Fantastic.
We spent several $100,000 a few years ago to find out what was causing that.
Right.
In hopes that we could replicate that across the rest of the country. What's causing it is the folks in the Panhandle. If you ever flew over the Panhandle and looked out of the airplane and saw those crop circles down there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's alfalfa, that's cotton, that's winter wheat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff for them to eat out there.
Right.
There's obviously water, or you wouldn't have the plants. And then you've got large landowners who are real careful in the amount of animals that they allow to be harvested on their private property.
Right. Fascinating. Well, Charlie, we both, Jimmy and I, went to Texas Tech. So myself, I spent a lot of time out there dove hunting and duck hunting and whatnot, and quite literally some of my most cherished memories are out there on the Cap Rock, in particular near Crosbyton, Texas, out there dove hunting in the evening, watching the mule deer come up from the Cap, come up from the Cap Rock to eat in those wheat fields. Just so cool, growing up hunting nothing but white-tailed deer. So that is really cool. So I am thrilled to hear they're doing so well in the Panhandle. Now, what about the Trans-Pecos? What's going on with them? Are they steady or what's the news?
We're back to the fragmentation thing. Everybody's quite aware of the oil boom that's has gone on for a long time in the Permian.
Right.
So you've got roads crisscrossed, all through there.
Right.
Big water trucks driving way too fast, mule deer standing in the way in the middle of the night like they do.
Right.
What we do as the Mule Deer Foundation is put, I would say, 90 cents out of every dollar we raise goes into some form of water project in the Trans-Pecos.
Right.
Water being the limiting factor. We put these guzzlers and build wells and do all kinds of things out there, both on public and private property.
Right.
The blessing there is everything out there needs a drink. I can't
Sure.
tell you how many times I've been out there and we just get the first bit of water in it to make sure the plumbing is working. And here comes a yellow jacket, and he's sipping on the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have long followed the efforts out there in the Trans-Pecos, the Elephant Mountain Range and whatnot for the Texas Bighorns, and I've always had a kind of talking about a competitor to the Texas Bighorn and the Desert Mule Deer would be the Aoudad. What are your thoughts about the Aoudad as far as being a competitor for towards the mule deer and the Desert Bighorn?
Well, I was talking to a biologist many years ago in my career, and he basically, and we were talking about turkeys, and he said that if that turkey finds everything it needs in a couple square miles, it will survive, and if it doesn't, it will die.
Right.
So I think you can use that same simplistic reason. if what Aldad need out there, obviously they're doing spectacular. If what they need they can find, they survive. Aldad is doing great. Bighorn sheep, we've done a fantastic job, or Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Sheep Foundation people done a great job as far as reintroducing those and
right.
Putting water in all that right place. As a matter of fact, what got us started a few years back on putting guzzlers out there was Texas sheep people, Texas Bighorn Society.
Right.
Said that they had built a lot of guzzlers for sheep and put game cams on them. The first thing they see is a mule deer.
Mule deer, right.
Okay, well, let's put our money together and do that a whole bunch more.
Excellent.
But to answer your question, as far as competition, is there a competition? I'm sure there is. I am not a biologist. I am a fundraising guy.
Right.
And in that, we have raised funds for a gentleman that's got a big ranch, 20 miles south of Van Horn.
Okay.
We have collared Aldad, we have collared Bighorn, and we have collared mule deer, and we will track their interactions on that ranch for the next 2 years.
No kidding.
Then we can answer your question with education and authority, as opposed to, well, it's probably not a good thing, but who really knows?
Sure. Well, hats off to the ranch owner there for opening up his or her property to the, for the betterment of the animals in Texas. That is fantastic. I can't wait to see the results of that study. That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it'd be really neat to see those like on the website or something if you're patterning them and, seeing, how they interact and everything, kind of the whole conclusion of it,
Well, we've got a couple of clips out that we can pick up from the Mule Deer Foundation that the ranch has already sent us.
Okay.
But that was the start of the study, where we were putting 40 collars on those 3 species, 40 each, with the helicopters and weighing them and blood samples and, the whole bit.
Right. Excellent. Very, very cool. Charlie, what's your opinion of the MLDP? Managed land deer. For those of you who don't know, who aren't familiar with the MLDP, it stands for Managed Land Deer Permits, and basically what it is that these are special permits issued through Texas Parks and Wildlife, and the number of permits you get is dictated by your range conditions, your harvest level, basically where you are, things of that nature. What's your opinion of that in an area like the Trans-Pecos, where things are a little rocky, per se, as far as the population?
Well, I think, like all programs, it comes down to the person that's administering it, and then you have to look at the rancher that owns the property that entered into it.
Right.
I've heard a lot of negative comments from mule deer that, holy cow, you can start shooting them end of September and hunt them till the end of February.
Right.
Well, that might be true, but that rancher does not want to kill off all of anything that he's got.
Of course.
He wants, he's going to get more money for larger animals.
Right.
And be able to pick and choose when a certain animal ought to be harvested.
Right.
I think, hats off to Texas Parks and Wildlife. They are some of our best friends.
Right.
The flip
Excellent.
side is there a rancher out there that would shoot every mule deer on his place from the end of September to the end of February? Maybe, but I don't know who he is. And
right.
I don't think from a business point of view that would make a lick of sense.
Sure. Well, and you got to hope that, majority of the big ranchers out there are hopefully real, ethical Texans and realize what they got and how much of how big of a treasure that is.
Everyone I have met is people you wish were already part of your family.
I believe it.
Folks out there.
I believe it.
The one drawback I've heard with the MLD program, and this comes back from the biologist, even though there are, they have to, shoot a certain number of does in order to, stay qualified to maintain some kind of buck-doe relationship.
Right.
That they really can't find anybody who wants to shoot does.
Interesting. Well,
And
they
from a
haven't
mule
called
deer
me.
perspective, I tend to err on the side of you don't want to take out the baby makers if our numbers are already down.
Right.
There's also a lot of concern when it comes to, well, let's face it, we all live on the east side of Texas. We're whitetail hunters.
Yes, sir.
But you take that first person that goes over and sees a 2-year-old mule deer. It's bigger than any whitetail he ever saw in his backyard.
Right.
But it's just a baby.
Right.
So trying to get them to let them walk until they get to be 6 or 7 years old is an educational process.
Right.
That we'll be going through for a while. As a matter of fact, Texas Parks and Wildlife, after they did that study I told you that talked about, several $100,000 to find out, there were 5 counties identified where that was happening. And they decided that we're going to try antler whip restriction before that animal.
Absolutely.
And we're going into the 2nd year of that.
Oh, that's right. Well, the antler restrictions have been a huge success, although probably not very welcomed in East Texas. But they've turned some of those counties around. So I'd be really curious to see how that does, for the mule deer. I had forgotten that they did that. That's great.
Well, there's another phrase that comes from that line of thought as a whitetail hunter. You hear the term cull bucks. Most of the time that's an excuse for somebody to shoot a little one and not feel too bad about it. I want to go on record right now as there is no such thing as a cull buck in the mule deer world.
Okay.
If you leave them alone, they get large.
Right. Excellent. And that's a good segue into my next question for you. Where what counties, what area in general are you going to see the bigger mule deer? The Trans-Pecos or in the Panhandle, and if it's the Panhandle, is the east side of Lubbock, Amarillo, or the west side? I've got my opinion just from what I've seen and drooled over, but I'd be curious to get yours.
I would have to say. Well, you said you went to school at Tech. You ever been to Yoakum Dunes State Wildlife Area?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They've pulled a 200-inch mule deer off of there every year for the last 3 years.
Golly.
Wow.
That's absolutely
and that is
amazing.
not crop circle country. There's ranches up there that if you're not related to somebody, you're not going to get to hunt there.
Sure.
And there's 200-inch mule deer all over the place.
Right.
Wow.
And I heard that they live out there in the sand hills, and they gorge themselves, and like you say, get to be 200 plus pounds on nothing but chili peppers, something of that nature.
According to our biologist, it's winter wheat with a little bit of cotton mixed in.
Interesting.
Well, they like the cotton.
That's how they get through the winter. Yeah.
Right. Well,
now,
it's
the San Pecos area obviously does not have the food to generate, monster mule deer. But there's enough food out there for them to be real healthy and, proud of your trophies if you're hunting over by, Fort Davis or Balmorhea or those kind of places.
Awesome. Excellent. Talk to us a little bit about, hybrid animals. It is. I subscribe to a lot of the hunting, chat forums and whatnot here in Texas, and it is without a doubt every year you get multiple pictures of, okay, hey, this clearly looks like a mule deer, but it's got whitetail antlers, or I don't know, it's got the facial characteristics of a whitetail, but it's got the forks like a mule deer. How many hybrids are there really out there? In your opinion, and from what you've heard, is there a real way to be able to distinguish, hey, yeah, that's a hybrid animal?
You've got to identify a window of time. Is that window of time 1830 or 1980?
Okay.
And if an animal is hybrid, will it survive? We got to go back to what that biologist says. If what it needs is there, it'll survive.
Right.
But one of the neat things about being a part of a chapter in Texas is the 1st of February, we meet with all the committees and all the biologists from all the different places. And for the last 2 years, we've had a graduate student out of Texas A&M Kingsville conducting DNA studies on mule deer.
Interesting.
And her findings are that no matter which mule deer she samples, it's going to have whitetail DNA in it. The only question is how much.
Huh, really?
Well, let's go back to that window of time,
Right.
like recorded history. Mule deer originally evolved supposedly as a cross between blacktail
Right.
and whitetail. That's how we came up with mule deer in the first place.
Right.
That being said, they were hybrids from day one.
Very true. I never knew that.
Now, whenever we look at mule deer from a biological point of view, they've already existed thousands of years the way they are. But a recent hybrid, one that, mom was a whitetail, dad was a mule deer, whatever it was, that does occur. Is it frequent? I don't know. I don't stay out with night vision scopes and see what they're doing in breeding season.
Right.
But from what my understanding is, the only real way to tell is where the scent gland is located on the back leg.
Okay.
And it's got to be midway on that shin bone, as opposed to up high or down low.
Okay.
Is it a big issue? Nope.
Right.
It's going to taste the same way dredged in flour and milk.
Absolutely. That's fascinating. Well, I had heard that about the gland. I just didn't know if anything had changed.
Those DNA studies from that young lady out of Texas A&M in Kingsville, I mean, everybody was just floored.
Interesting.
But if you rely on science, I mean, it's right there.
Sure. No, absolutely. I got to look that up, and I tell you what we'll do. We'll see if we can't find some of her work and then post it for everybody.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
You have a little saying on your website saying ensuring the conservation of mule deer, blacktail deer, and their habitat. And you just mentioned blacktail deer. Can you speak a little bit about blacktail, like where they are? And I'm curious to see if the mule deer was, a hybrid between the two at the same time, like where that might have happened. Like what is their habitat like, and where are they predominantly?
Their habitat is the Pacific coast, Northern California, Washington, Oregon, those big rainy mountains up there. That's the only place that you will find it. Well, Alaska, same thing.
Okay.
Whenever you look at one, it looks pretty much in the face like a mule deer, and it'll only be a 3-point, just counting one side because I am west of the Trinity River. They don't get, very large at all. Their habitat issues have to do more. They are a dense forest animal, as opposed to an animal of the wide open, like our mule deer here in Texas are. And the chapters that are on the Pacific coast, they will spend all their money on blacktail conservation things. The things that sets us up a little different than a lot of the conservation groups is when our fundraiser is over, the committee that actually raised the money get to sit down and pick out the projects that they want their money spent on. They got a real say-so in it.
Interesting.
So if you're a chapter in Columbia, Oregon, you're going to do something close to the house.
Sure.
Our chapters here in Texas, they're going to do something in Trans-Pecos or the Panhandle. We are restricted by charter that the only thing that we can spend the money we raise on is mule deer habitat improvement or wildlife conservation education programs.
Right.
That's all we do. No Meals on Wheels, no kid programs, no girl programs. I mean, we do kid programs and girl programs, but we can't spend the money that we raised for that. They have to generate their own. enthusiasm, if you will.
Right, right. Charlie, the white-tailed deer. If anybody who's hunted in the Panhandle, who's had the privilege, I should call it, sitting over a wheat field up there in the Caprock Canyon area, or near Lubbock or whatever it may be, you obviously get a lot of whitetail, and you get a lot of mule deer. And the whitetails seem to be a lot more skittish, and they also seem to be a little bit more dominant. I've heard that the whitetail are starting to make their way further south and west into traditional mule deer territory. And I've kind of I've seen the pictures of these whitetail in the Davis Mountains, going, my goodness, they look so out of place. Are the mule deer in some areas in Texas moving into areas they've not traditionally been?
The Panhandle herd. Remember, that's the only expanding herd.
Okay.
I've got a friend with a ranch up by Childress, and
Okay.
he hunted there. Now, this guy is in his 40s. When he was 12 years old, he shot the first buck that came by whenever his grandpa said he could hunt. And they had the buck in the garage because it was a mule deer.
Oh, wow.
The first time it had ever been in Childress. Okay, so we're going to go back to, that was 1960s, 1970s, long in there someplace.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they got that far. Right now, you can draw a line from Childress down to about Del Rio, and everything west of that line is mule deer habitat. I do hear stories about, the 5 mule deer they saw in Jacksboro, but
I've heard of that. I've heard of that too.
Chances are, they're a wild animal. They're going to go where they can get away with. Doesn't take much to scare them. And as far as whitetail encroaching on their habitat, that's probably a natural thing. I grew up in Graham, and riding around at night, if we saw one set of deer eyes, that was pretty amazing for the mid-'60s.
Wow.
And now there's deer all over the place.
Oh,
and
sure.
turkeys and all sorts of other things.
Sure.
So they just figured out how to get along with people better than mule deer have.
Sure. I grew up hunting in Throckmorton. So
Okay.
I am living in Dallas. I went through Graham many, many, many times. So outstanding.
Only town in West Texas that hasn't changed in 60 years.
I love it. I love it. I miss it. I really do. We would go up to Lubbock. We would take 380 and 114. So we got to we got to. In fact, that was one of the things we enjoyed so much. And we take 114 and seeing all the big wheat fields of the 4-6 ranch, and all that. And literally, I'm sitting here driving, asking my girlfriend, soon to be wife at the time, hey, look, watch the road while I look at all the mule deer and whitetail out in these wheat fields. Golly. What a ball. So Charlie, tell our listeners, how can we get involved? How can we help? Where are your chapters located in Texas? What exactly do you guys do? Things of that nature.
We do the same thing at a banquet that everybody else does. Drink a beer, win a gun. Pretty simple concept.
Love it.
A lot of times there'll be, something to eat.
Right.
You can buy tickets online to various chapters, functions, at muledeer.org. That's also a great website. There's all kinds of information there. But one of the things is it talks about upcoming banquets. We have chapters in Grapevine, Frisco, moving on down the road, Round Rock, Houston, San Antonio, Parker County here in Weatherford, where I live. And Fort Stockton, Abilene, Odessa, Amarillo. You'd have a hard time living in Texas and not being within 100 miles of a banquet.
Oh, perfect.
We run banquets 12 months out of the year. So just whenever people want to get together and drink a beer and win a gun.
I love it.
Sounds good.
The
Fantastic.
Frisco chapter is one of the most difficult chapters. You ever tried to drive from Weatherford to Frisco?
Oh, geez.
I've done it 6 or 8 times. I've never gone the same way twice.
I believe it. Charlie, if the traffic gets much worse.
Hunters want to get together And if we
Right.
don't have a chapter and you want to start one, you give me a call. We'll figure it out.
Excellent.
There are mule deer hunters everywhere. And those that realize they're in trouble, I mean, we're Americans. All we got to do is hear something's in trouble. We're going to pitch in. That's what this country's all about.
Right.
That's why I have a chapter in Atlanta, Georgia. I have another one in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's exciting.
Little Rock, Arkansas, Shreveport, Louisiana.
Right.
And, of course, when the guys are trying to sell tickets, everybody says, well, there's no mule deer around here. Well, there's not very many mule deer anyway. So let's help where we can.
No
and
doubt.
again, those chapters get to choose where their money is spent when it's over with.
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic. And you know, one of the things that I've always liked about organizations such as the Mule Deer Foundation is that people need to realize that when your money is going to directly to help mule deer, okay? But in the case of the Mule Deer Foundation, especially the work done in Texas, building the guzzlers, it's helping the sheep. It's helping songbirds. It's helping out everything. So, you really got to look at your donation as a much larger picture than just our treasured mule deer.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Seems like most of the people I meet, though, just want to drink that beer and win a gun.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either.
You got to start somewhere.
That's right.
So if they come to the banquet, we give them a membership to the organization. And in that is a subscription to the magazine, and the magazine is our pulpit. There's articles in there from biologists, from landowners, young people, old people. Six times a year you get to sit in your favorite reading spot and hear the word.
I love it. That's great.
Is the website the best place for people to find it?
Next year they want to improve some habitat somewhere.
Right. Would the website be the best place for people to sign up?
That's one way. You can just go straight to the website and sign up, or you can come to a banquet and you're going to be signed up.
Okay. Great. And the website's muledeer.org.
Yep.
Okay.
Mule deer is all word.
Yeah. And I see that you guys also have a podcast?
We do.
All right. Interesting.
We do.
I'm going to definitely put that in my queue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. We got anything else, Richard?
Well, no, I don't. Other than just Charlie, thank you for your work and your dedication to to this cause, and it is awesome. I all the hunting magazines and media that you see out there, it's all to the whitetail, exotics, and I just every time there's something about a mule deer in there, my eyes are glued to it. So and it's people like you that are making that happen, helping the mule deer out, and I can't thank you enough.
I got to tell you, there's more than 1 million people like me. All you got to do is let them know they need the help, and they fill up the banquet hall. Everybody's willing to help if they just knew there was a problem.
All right. Well, you've got me excited to get out there. I don't have a mule deer yet on my wall. Richard does, so I need to join that. I need to join that club ASAP. So I think that's next on my bucket list.
Of coming to one of my banquets, once you sign up as a member, I'll tell you a place that you can actually go.
Okay.
Doesn't cost you anything. It's got to have a hunting license. Drive up there, get out of the truck.
Perfect.
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Don't shoot the other members that are up there, though. I would appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the Feed Bandit podcast tonight.
Thanks for having me. If I can help in any other way, don't hesitate to call.
All right. Will do.
Excellent. Thanks, Charlie.
All right, folks. That was Charlie Stockstill, Regional Director of the Mule Deer Foundation. That was very interesting. I mentioned there at the end that, of course, you have your deer, your mule deer hanging on your wall. I need to get one.
Oh, they are just such a, again.
Where did you get yours, by the way? I don't remember.
I got mine in 2004 at a ranch on the road into Big Bend. It was, I think, like 10 miles from the Big Bend gate.
Okay.
On the south side of the road, it was, I can't remember the name of the ranch. It was funny. It was one of the smaller ranches out there, which I think it was about 10,000 acres. So,
The smaller ranches.
yeah, yeah. Well, but out there, it's
Yeah.
big country. There's not a lot of little ranchettes, but no, the mule deer in general is just a really really cool species. And one thing one question I wanted to ask him, and I kind of already know the answer, but I thought it would be good for all of our listeners is there are really two different subspecies of the mule deer. You have the desert muley, which is of course what we have here in Texas and Mexico. And then I think right at like the New Mexico line, it kind of, as you start to get up into the mountains, it changes over to the Rocky Mountain mule deer. And the Rocky Mountain mule deer is going to be, I believe, a little bit bigger of a mule deer, but it still has the same characteristics. It's got the big ears. Okay, they bounce. Okay, they actually hop. They don't run, which if you've never seen a mule deer run, type it in YouTube. It's fascinating. They don't run like a whitetail does. They spring, they hop, which is real funny in itself. So, the mule deer, and I was very serious when I was praising him for what he does. And I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to make him angry, but the mule deer is really the forgotten big game animal species of Texas, and it drives me nuts. It has for many, many years. And the hunting availability for him has not been, like it is for the whitetail. I mean, just like he said, everybody east shoots whitetail. They're available in every county. You can probably shoot them in Dallas if there was a season, which there actually used to be. But
there is one in Tarrant.
Yeah, no, I believe it. But the mule deer again is just like the Texas bighorn is an absolute treasure, and it's one that we all need to preserve. If you are a whitetail hunter, if you are a dove hunter, okay, you are a conservationist. All right, whether you have a piece of property or not, and I would really highly encourage everybody. I know, hey man, my money tree ain't blooming like it used to be. After I bought my washer and dryer, my tree is bare. But if you've got some extra time, some extra money, I would seriously consider giving it to the Mule Deer Foundation. Again, they're helping preserve a true Texas treasure.
Mm-hmm. I do definitely need to get one of them on my wall.
Oh, for sure. Well, and it's funny, I was legitimately asking him, okay, where, in your opinion, where's the bigger deer? And I knew it was in the Panhandle, and I guess I kind of knew why. But he's right. All the crop circles out there. The peanuts and the winter wheat and the cotton. My God, it's like a regular buffet. I remember a couple of times hunting up there in Lubbock with Dad. We literally were in his truck, and we just backed into a corner of a wheat field. Upwind, or no, downwind. Yes, downwind. Excuse me. Wow, downwind. So obviously they couldn't smell us, and we just watched whitetail after mule deer come out in these wheat fields and just pound this winter wheat. Well, there was a cotton field adjacent to it, and the cotton, the head said the cotton was ready to be harvested. It's actually kind of funny because I think it already should have been harvested. For some reason, it wasn't, and we just watched those mule deer just sit there and pound this cotton. And this was a long time ago. This was 2001, something of that nature, and that's when we didn't know a lot about cottonseed. Okay, and of course how big it is, and look at it now, and Charlie's right. That's why the mule deer get so ginormous out there, because they eat the cottonseed, and we've all seen what cottonseed does to deer, the whitetail. So you can imagine what it does to the mule deer. So
very interesting.
Very, very cool.
Oh, by the way, I looked it up here. In Dallas County, for alligator, the bag limit is 1 per person per year.
That is frustrating because I leave work, I get my swamp duds, and I want to go kill me 3 or 4 gators.
Right. But there is a whitetail deer season in Dallas County. Really? Yep, it says bag limit 4 deer, no more than 2 bucks, and no more than 2 antlerless, all seasons combined.
All right. Well,
and of course there's MLB and all that, but
right. I might do that for my little house here in North Dallas. My high fence, high fence. Oh boy, I don't want to say that too loud. High fence might 0.37 acres, something like that.
My next door neighbor has a high fence.
Yeah,
it's solid wood, but you know.
I thought you say razor wire.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny since we're on the topic. You know, there is rumor of a herd of axis on the Trinity River. I've seen pictures of it. Some guy a couple of years ago was driving down 45 early in the morning, and he took. Of course, he's some fella who probably doesn't know a lot about. Well, clearly he didn't know a lot about deer, and he said something. I think the post into the paper was something like, "Look at all these fawns," and of course they're gigantic axis deer. Just bizarre. It's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
right.
no mule deer in the city limits. You know, again, something else I wanted to ask him. You know, talking about creep of whitetail. Obviously, the whitetail are like I say, are making their way in the Trans-Pecos, and they're finding those forbs. Okay, and they're really survivors. You know, well, but with the mule deer being so kind of finicky, if you will. You know, they would reach a certain point where not only would the habitat be insufficient for them, again, they like those wide open areas, but also the food would be insufficient for them, and I think that they are browsers, just like whitetail, but I bet you that would be a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fascinating. That is the stuff that makes me have to take Tylenol PM at night because I can't stop thinking about it. And that little study he was talking about what they're tagging them all, that is fantastic stuff. I'm actually a little surprised he didn't mention the elk too. You know, the elk used to be native to Texas. I believe we had the Roosevelt elk, and of course we wiped them all out, and that's another story for another podcast. But they've come back now, as far as a lot of them in transplant. They're all Rocky Mountain elk, and some are coming in naturally from New Mexico, which I made that trip. In fact, I did it this past summer. That's a hell of a walk. Or they've actually been brought in here and put back in kind of the mountainous areas where they used to be. And I'd be curious to see how they fit into the picture because, I mean, they're huge. And they definitely compete with the Barbary sheep, aka the Aoudad, the bighorns, and the mule deer.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe some will eventually find their way onto Rancho Bandito.
Oh God, that would be their last stop. I mean, do not pass go. You will not collect $200. If I see an elk, he as long as it doesn't have too much jewelry in its ear, that's a big controversial thing. It's like my breeder bull elk that cost me $35,000 got out of my high fence. That belongs to me, and the courts have said, well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, anyway,
that's a topic for another day. Maybe a hunting controversy episode or something. I don't know.
I'd love that. Yeah. What we'll have a what would you do?
Right.
If an eland bull shows up at your feeder and he's got dangling, he looks like Mr. T out of his ears, would you shoot him? Most people are like, oh, hell yeah, I would. And I just rip them ears out, and I ain't going to put that thing on the wall for a couple of years. But yeah. No. Yeah, but that was really cool. I've always wanted to talk to him, and again, kudos to you and to the whole foundation and all the members that hopefully are listening. So cool.
Agreed. Yeah, thanks again, Charlie, for stopping by and giving us some interesting mule deer discussion. I really appreciate it. I think that's all we got tonight, unless you got one last thing.
I will say support your local feed store and support your local mule deer.
There you go. You go. Go to muledeer.org and find one of those dinners and get yourself a beer and a gun.
Yeah, and slow down.
While helping the mule deer.
Yeah, slow down. I think what Charlie was saying, and he's right. They'll just sit there. Come on, dude, wake up. Why are you in the middle of the road? So yeah, slow down. Don't hit them all. It's not good.
All right, Corn Bandit.
Yeah.
Thanks for a good episode tonight.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Had fun listening to it. And y'all stay tuned. Next couple episodes are going to be fun. So Stay tuned, and we'll see you on the flip side. Support your local feed store. Thanks for listening to the Feed Bandit podcast. Just a reminder to text the word bandit to 345-345. And when you do, you'll join our email list where we'll send killer deals on innovative hunting products and services, along with entertaining tips and tricks straight to your inbox. You don't want to miss out. So again, text the word bandit to 345-345, and we look forward to seeing you on the hunt. Until next time, have a good one, and remember to support your local feed store.